Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is a live, unedited, unrehearsed look into my digital art workflow. My name's Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, sometimes animator, and your pal. Psyched as hell to bring you another episode this week. Um, Things have been moving. We were on our second phase of a two-parter this week, which we do every once in a while. Um, I guess 2 weeks ago, we put together this really sweet landscape using only displacement maps and this handful of images that I had found of lichens and fungi and all kinds of cool stuff. And liking that so much, last week I decided to make a temple. And so we spent the whole episode putting together this 3D model of this kind of ancient, crazy looking, mysterious temple. And the thought now is that we're going to take this temple this week and build a sick little landscape around it. So thanks for swinging by. I'm happy to have everyone here. And let's dig in, get this thing going. I think let's kill, first of all, these materials. And while I'm starting to set some of this stuff up, I guess it's worth saying that we're on episode 47 right now, creeping ever closer to that big episode 50. And I'm excited to say that we're working on a few things. We're working on some updates, some changes, a few things that are going to make the show feel a little bit more legit, a little bit higher production values. Not much, but we're inching towards having a real show here. So I'm psyched to be able to share some of that stuff with you quite soon, really. So as always, it's awesome when folks get in the chat. Please don't be shy. Say hello. Drop a comment. And if you're working on something cool, if you want to share, if you want to get some feedback, want to get some more eyes on what you're working on, upload your work. Let's see what you're doing, and maybe we'll pull that up a little later in the show while some frames are rendering out or something like that, and we can share with the rest of the community. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move some of these fungi over where I can grab them a little more easily. Let's see here. So, let's do this. There we go. I've selected a handful that look promising that I want to use in today's episode. Let's start here. Now, the one tricky thing about this technique is that, it gets a little intense to render at times, especially when we click on subpolygon displacement. Let's see, do we have to? I think to get true displacement, you might need to expand the texture or expand the geometry into editable, but that's not true because that's not giving us the result that we want anyway. Displacement, right. Let's see here. Hmm. I guess I had to crank that setting up a little bit. Hello, Camp. What's up? Hello from San Francisco. Thanks for tuning in Mexico. Glad to have you. So what I do with a lot of these is that this photographic texture is a little bit too sort of spot on, too on the nose a little bit for me. So what I usually do is turn down this image map itself and add a little bit of color, which sort of evens it out. I think I want to go even harder with this. In terms of displacement, I think also what we're dealing with is the fact that this is a light image. So if I hit this black point up a little bit, that's going to darken some of the values and give us more of a value range to generate displacement from. So cool, so that's looking interesting already. You can just, if you have the right image, you can just so quickly get a lot of really interesting displacement geometry. You get a ton of texture, a ton of interest, like real quick. See, now that almost feels a little bit too much, actually. So let's bring this down a little bit. And let's bring down the black point a little bit as well. Smooth some of that out. What I love about this technique is that the lights of the image will move up. And when you use the displacement map and the color map at the same time, you get sort of a realistic pairing of color, you see, and shape, so that the lighter areas of the image match with the taller areas of the displacement, and you get this rather realistic sort of fall off in the color. And it's good. What else? I think we want to get a little something going in the background here. Maybe a little bit of a mountainous texture. This is going to be a lot of pushing and pulling, as you can imagine. We're going to be experimenting a whole bunch. Let's see here. Let's grab another fungus image. What feels mountainous? Actually, those look so similar. I'm going to rename them, which I'm in a terrible habit of like hardly ever doing. But let's remedy that. Let's get better at it. Eventually, we're also going to want to find a nice spot for this temple. Not sure how much of the composition ultimately it should occupy, but we'll, like I said, we'll be pushing and pulling and figuring that along the way. I'm excited. It's not super frequently that we have sort of a two-parter here. I'm hoping that the combination of these two will give some pretty sweet results. That still looks way too much like a plane, so I need to bump this displacement a lot. This one I think I'll push the exposure and the black point a little bit too. Things are looking a little too jagged, so I'm going to throw this up to like, let's say 6, this blur, which is going to help smooth out some of that stuff. Oh, whoops. That's the blur to the image map, which is not what I want. Bring that down a hair. That's far too purple as well. Push pull, push pull. See how that rounds that out? It's looking a lot better already. Huge difference. But let's keep pushing it. Now we're talking. You see that? Got rocky landscape. What I'll probably do is bring one sort of into the mid-ground here to sort of fade in between the two. Bring a bit more of that into the fore or mid-ground. Even though it's underneath here, it's got more displacement than this layer does. I think it's going to work well for us. What's up, Source? How's it going, man? What's good with you guys? Working on anything cool today? Or of late? You notice I'm keeping my render settings fairly low at this point while we're blocking things out. It takes a minute to render, so I want to keep things fairly simple. All right, I think it's time to introduce we get a little bit of fading here. I think I want to bring that up a little further. Oops. There we go. Good deal. Good deal, Source. You always need time to gather your ideas. There's always in-between phases. There's, conception idea phases. There's working it out phases. Then there's like execution phases where you're not being creative at all. You're just like kind of grinding out the rest of your project, which happens. Personally, I'm in a little bit of a restart phase myself. Got some ideas, some new projects that might be sort of trickling in. Just yesterday, I actually finished up a fairly decent contract that had me fairly busy last month. Really psyched about how it came together. Not quite ready to share what we put together yet, but it's a character design for a promising new technology company, and I'm really excited about where it landed. Can't wait to share it with you guys. Should launch in June, and it'll look pretty sweet, I'm hoping. So more to come on that. But it was it was a month of pretty intensive development. We came up with something pretty sweet, and now I'm starting to open up a little bit. So there's a sort of a collaboration I'm working on with another artist. There's a personal project I might start. I finished Look to the Sea, which was a short film that y'all should check out about 2 or 3 months ago. And I'm thinking I might want to fire up another short film project. Not quite sure yet what it's going to be, but I think that's the type of thing I should always really be kind of working on. So anyways, I'm going to use some soft selection here to kind of create mounds, kind of pull some of this geometry up, break the surface in a little bit more realistic way here. Start create little areas of additional texture and interest. See, now that that's elevated, I can kind of create mounds like this. Start putting some of that stuff in. I think this temple should probably be a bit bigger too, right? Ooh. Hmm. So let's try that then. That's an interesting idea. Let's see if that works. So let's take this plane. Just put a displacer on the plane. Ah, I see what you mean. And then you could, let's see, so which image is this? Called 7650. So displacer, shading. That was what, 7650. Bam. No. So then, okay. Ah, you're right. Look at that. Let's see if we can match exactly the displacement settings. So we've got 19. One. We only have a subdivision, does it? Well, let's compare the two. We'll kill the displacement on this. See if it looks the same. Huh. Looks like it went pretty flat. Hmm. See, I don't know if it allows us to do this sub-polygon displacement, which is what we really need for those realistic bumps. Man, we're so close. It'd be awesome to make this work. Let's see. What if we just mapping alpha? So close. I wish we could do that sub-polygon displacement with them. Because you're right, this displacer does show us what we need to know in terms of the macro view. And I wonder if you could do just a sub-polygon displacement. I don't think you can. Let's do this, 0. Hmm, darn. Super close. This is definitely something I want to play with a little more. I think for this instance, I'm just going to undo a bit. Get us back to where we were. Right. So close. Yeah, see, I think I could have copied the displacement shade. I mean, I basically have the same thing. It's just missing this one area, this sub-polygon displacement. which I'm not sure that the displacement effector has. Really close. I'm going to have to play with that more and see if I can't make that work eventually. Hello, I am watching your stream. We've got the rare Twitch participant. Thanks for stopping by. Hello, hello. If you missed the intro, we are working on creating a landscape in Cinema 4D using only images as displacement maps. So you can see this really simple geometry is yielding this fairly complex organic model. We modeled this temple in last week's episode because I knew we'd want to make another one of these cool-ass landscapes to incorporate it into. So what I'm going to do actually is break up these hills a little bit, just using some soft selection. Definitely along this edge, we had a little bit of like a straight line happening, which did not feel very organic. Same with this guy. Let's hide that corner a little bit, get some foreground interest. Let's try that. Yeah, Source, I'm intrigued to see if that'll work too. I hope it does. Let me know if you find anything cool, because I'd like to use this technique a little bit more, but of course it's so render intensive that it can be a little bit time consuming, especially for a stream like this. But there you have it. All right, let's mix in some more textures. So let's see. Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to get some green in here, some planty looking stuff. Certainly this is. add a little camera so I'm locked in here. Continue building this composition. Yeah, you could. That makes sense. So then, it's sort of, I think we're at that point where we're sort of six in one hand, half a dozen in the other, because sub polygon displacement is doing the work for us in subdividing or adding, a subdivision surface, which will in turn, if we go ahead and add that ourselves, that will in turn affect um, the render times because we're adding a ton of geometry, right? So I'd be curious to see. I don't think I'm going to do the work and modify all that for this episode, but I would be really curious to see um, what that difference is. If we could do a direct comparison, one where we build it by hand, the other where we use subsurface. What do they call that? Sub polygon displacement. I wonder how they would compare. Be interesting to see for sure. Going through and making all this stuff a little darker. Like I want this. I should make this a little lighter too. I want this temple to really pop. Yeah, I might do a test later this week, or if you wind up doing one, would love to see the results. Whoops. I'm going to try using a different displacement map for the, or a different image for the displacement than I am for the color. I'm just not loving the, I like the color of these things, but I'm not loving the form. So I'm just going to throw a random image on them, see if they work any better. This stuff back here is starting to feel really great. I'm really digging the look of that. All right, let's see what we get. don't know if anyone tuned in last week, but there was definitely some discussion about whether or not this head was working on the temple, whether or not we should include it or make it smaller or change the place or the placement. What I'm going to try, and something I didn't think of last week, is maybe just including it in the landscape. Let's see how that does. Let's see how that treats us. Maybe that one's like a ruin. Now, what's going to help this image a lot, but I'm not quite ready to add it yet, is a little bit of ambient occlusion and global illumination. Shadows are feeling a little flat, and the lighting's a little bit basic. And that'll improve a lot once we crank that setting. Just not quite there yet. Feeling like we need a little bit more drama to these mountains. So I'm adding another layer back here, bumping the height a significant extent. Scene was feeling a little bit shallow, perhaps. Hey, Talos. Oh, so I am not a big high-powered computer guy. I'm actually running on a MacBook Pro right now. It's one of the better equipped uh, MacBook Pros. Um, let's see here. Might not want to show that actually. Come to think of it, with my serial number and shit. Um, so those hills are feeling awesome. Actually, I'm glad I added that in. Another thing I did with the physical sky last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, that felt really awesome. When I think of it, was adding this fog. So let's see. Let's see how that treats us. I'm going to turn up the density to about 50. You can see it just a little bit, right? They get a little hazier as they go back, but they're also affected by height. And this really adds a lot of purple to the scene. Not too much. So I'm going to turn the end height down a little bit. And I like to have the point of this come to right around the 0 mark. I think this represents the most dense the fog will be, and this is the fall off to not dense at all. So you want the max density at or just above the ground level. And we can actually make sure that that's accurate by going over here. So this, wow, is actually kind of low. 173 actually. So what I can do is, I want to lower this, -90, right? Which will still put it above ground level. Let's try that again. But look at that. You can feel sort of the fogginess in here. What'd that do to render times? Yeah, 3 seconds. Not bad. I'll allow it. I'm creating a little bit of a high spot here for the temple to sit on. It's feeling a little bit low. I wanted to get the points above this mountain line, but I liked that additional height of the mountain line in the back. So like always, we're pushing and pulling and finding a happy medium when this would work. But if you think about it, I feel like this ancient culture would have built their cool temple on a bit of a hilltop, right? They wouldn't just go into a valley. They'd want it to be more prominent. So I feel like this all makes sense. Let's try that again. I think this altered angle, this altered camera angle will help with the placement of this fog a bit as well. And I think we might need a little bit more, textural interest. Maybe a new pattern to introduce. What do we have in there? Got that one. Ooh, these guys are cool. This guy, I might even try and line up the interesting bit. So let's try this. Yeah, look at those crazy things. All right. Yeah, maybe that's not worth it. We could do it, but best to just keep it as is. Those look pretty crazy. These ones might be a little bit harder to work with than the others because they sort of have, they're not like all over texture. They're sort of isolated images within the overall image, if that makes sense. They're like isolated points of interest within the entire image. So just experimenting, seeing what we're going to come up with. Although Or if I should try and ring the temple in this crazy shit. Cool. Sounds good, Source. Doing your little practice concurrently with mine, which is good. And I hope everyone out there has a creative practice of their own. I think it makes sense. I'm wondering now, will this stone temple texture work better a little bit darker? Let's go even darker. This ring around the temple mound works surprisingly well, actually. Adds a bit of color to the scene. I'm skewing a little. You might notice I'm going a little redder on all the landscape elements, and a little bit bluer on the temple and the stone pieces because I want to make sure there's enough contrast between the two. Now, see, that's probably a little bit too blue. Go back on that a little bit. And actually, this red smoke is feeling pretty cool. Or the red fog, rather. Hi, Alan. Yeah, I always love doing that. Seeing where you're starting from, where you started from. Just going through all the different renderings. But a really cool little tip that you can do is if you want to share your progress, if you've gone through some stuff and you've got some cool old rounds of revisions and neat stuff, you want to share the whole piece, you can just select everything in here, shift, select everything in here, go save as, selected frames, save these all out into a folder. And then what you can do is you can just drag them into Photoshop and make a GIF out of them, and it's like just shows the progress of the piece. So if you want to do like a quick work in progress or like a show your process, your progress, you can make a really quick little GIF out of them if you save all of these renderings out, which I do every once in a while. Not a ton, but it's fun to do every now and then. Just keep knocking out these test renderings. All right. So I'm going to crank the settings now, see what we get. I'm going to see if the physical renderer, the standard, does the better job. I'll often test that at this point in the game. I feel it's going to look a bit crisper. Shadows will hopefully be a bit nicer. Details will be a bit clearer, and render times will definitely be longer. I love the way the fog is sort of collecting around this guy's head. Gives you sort of a sense of depth, sense of height, right? Makes this guy look more in the foreground than this guy does. It's awesome. This sort of hazy stuff going on here. It's really cool. As it collects in the little valleys and stuff. Yeah. Feeling it. Let's try this. Now the temple especially is looking better. We'll bump those settings. The ambient occlusion helps all the little details in there really stand out a lot. And the light bounce, of course, helps all these little shadow details. See all through here and there. It does make a big difference. You know what I'm going to do is I'm kind of wondering if this was a night scene, what would it look like? So what I'm going to do is going to make it really easy because we're basing all of this lighting off of just this one physical sky, which is basically built into one. It's Cinema 4D preset that we have built into one. We have like an infinite light, which acts like the sun, and a dome, like a sky dome that acts as like the gradient illuminator. So I can just quickly switch that off. Now we can try an alternate alternate colors lighting scheme. I'm going to just push this along into sort of the evening hours. It's going to make things darker. It's going to adjust the position of the sun. Shoot, you know, switch this over to physical. I'm going to turn it back to standard just so we have a more even baseline to compare against. Are you done? All right, so 5 minutes, not too bad. It's not a huge scale. What are we at? 1750 by 1000. It's not enormous, but it's a start. So now this will be interesting to compare the color schemes of the two. What I'm thinking I might do is if I'm feeling this evening look a little bit, what I might do is on some of these totems is add like a little illuminated object, a little bit of a glowing thing. So maybe this is like a high-tech kind of ruin that we're looking at here. I'm not seeing like any light bouncing around the scene, so I wonder if I went too late at night. This is at about 8:45. Hmm. I'm just doing a quick sample render here. Maybe we just went way too late at night, and there won't even be any light to bounce around. No, there is some light. It's just not much. Well, that fog really does look pretty crazy in this setup. Everything's quite red. This is going to give us a very alien look. Might even be too dark. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's too dark, so I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit. Rewind the clock about an hour. Let's see what that gets us. I'm going to stop this guy. I can tell you, it looks like we're going to have to turn the fog down just a little bit in this evening sky, but you know, it does look a lot more alien. It really does. Colors controlled a little more tightly. It's pretty cool. I'm going to turn this fog down to, let's say, 70. Let's try this again. Yes. At this point, the renderings are going to be taking a bit longer, so if anyone wants to share some work with the streaming audience at large, just drop a link in the comments, and I'd be glad to show what everyone's working on. If not, if in the next couple of minutes none of that happens, maybe I can show a time lapse of a quick sketch screen sketch stream. Why don't I do that? I've been sharing these over on my Instagram page and other places of social media, mostly on Instagram. That's at DLGNCE. If you want to go check that stuff out, it'd be greatly appreciated. So here's the most recent one. Basically, what I do is just record my sketchbook from an overhead position. Just sketch for 20 minutes. I've been really enjoying streaming. I love sharing my work with the world. But what I find is that, the show we're working on now, it's 2 hours long, and a lot of people really don't know much or care much about 3D modeling. And what I wanted to do was provide something that was a little bit easier to view, a little bit quicker, certainly, because these only come in about, they're 20 minutes long if you watch the full one. If you watch the time lapse, they're only about a minute long. And that makes it, I think, a little bit, it lowers the barrier to entry for viewing. Most people don't want to watch 2 hours of a guy 3D modeling, which I totally understand. I love doing it. And for the people that do watch, gosh, heart goes out to you. Love you guys. You're the best. Love the support. But for everyone else, maybe it's fun to just do some quick sketch streams, right? So if you're a subscriber to the channel, you may have seen some of these already, but they're just a ton of fun to put out. And if you haven't, I would say, definitely subscribe. These will be coming out regularly, almost daily in some cases. And if you prefer not to watch the full-length versions, just hit me up on Instagram. That's DLGNCE. I'm pretty much that diligence moniker on all social media channels. But yeah, check me out. I'll be posting the time-lapse versions of these, which I'm sharing with you right now, over there as well. So check it out. And I should say, if there's any subject matter you want to see, either for the sketch streams or for the practice, hit me up. Let me know. Like I'm always willing to chat with folks. Even if it's not about subject matters relating to the streams that I do, whatever. Shoot me an email. Hit me up. I had a Reddit user actually email me, or I guess he just messaged me on Reddit, but he hit me up the other day. Just was at a tough point in a client project they were working on, and they needed another set of eyes to bounce some ideas off of, and I'm always available for that, or usually available for that, unless my schedule's absolutely insane. I usually have a few minutes to share and help out and chat with you guys, and I'd love to continue doing that. So don't be shy. Hit me up. How incestuous is this? I'm showing one stream on the other. So this thing's still chugging through pre-passes, 4 minutes in, which is a little bit annoying. So I'll show one more of these sketch streams. I'm also quickly checking out what the deal on Periscope is. And it's tough because a lot of times I can't say what's up. I can't even see your comments. So I'm just popping over there. I don't see anyone commenting, but yeah, now. And we're getting some rendering done. It's looking awfully yellow. Hmm. Yes, I'm not sure if it's any better than the other one. I like the longer shadows. That's looking cool. When the sky's like completely black. Yeah, they're related. I think that's one of the other cool thing about sharing the sketching process a bit is that sometimes it relates to the 3D work. I know they're often quite different, but I think some of my artistic tendencies shine through on both, to be honest. Hmm. Night, day, night, day, day, night, day, night. Do you guys have a preference? This one's just too dark. That's one thing I could do too is the progressive rendering. I haven't even been thinking about that. So in the physical render, you can do something called progressive rendering, which allows you to just spit out a really low quality rendering right out of the gate, and then it will slowly and incrementally increase that quality, which is kind of cool because it does it forever until you actually stop the rendering. It's really neat. Let's see how long that takes here. See, it's kind of low quality. Let's just pass one. We'll just keep going through and increase. See, there's another pass. Quality gets slightly better. Still getting like nothing in the sky. I'm really looking for. I know at a certain point we can get that sundown kind of look in the sky, which is what I prefer. Yep. Camp. I do. I mean, this is actually a sort of an uncommon way for me to work. I hardly ever use displacements to create geometry like this, and usually I'll start with really basic forms, primitives. I'll block out shapes. I'd encourage you to go check out some of my previous episodes and hit subscribe, and we'll certainly be making more straightforward modeling videos in the future. That's typically how I do most of my stuff. In fact, if you go to the last video, the one where we modeled the temple that we're working on today, I think you'll see a more traditional workflow. Something that's a little more straightforward too and doesn't have all this back and forth with these kind of longer renderings. The problem with this technique is, it's really sort of easy and quick to create these incredibly detailed landscapes. Problem is that they take a long time to render out, which can get a little bit old. But to be honest, I'm really starting to feel the progress of this. I think that last lighting tweak we made is it's feeling good. We've got some really cool sort of foggy effects going. It's starting to feel a little bit more like sundown. I like the way the light's hitting inside of this temple. These long shadows look really cool, especially as they interact with the fog. This guy looks kind of creepy. I love these. I'm digging these reddish mountains in the back. For whatever reason, these things kind of remind me of whole grain mustard. These areas down here, but that's cool. The mustardy landscape. What's cool is I'm letting these progressive passes roll, and the quality is increasing a little bit now. Granted, this isn't a huge rendering, and I probably won't output a huge rendering for today. We're almost at about an hour and 45 minutes in, which is close to where we want to stop. I'll probably cut it off at about the 2-hour mark. Let this roll a little bit longer. Probably save out a quick ping, alter it in Photoshop just a hair to give us a cool look, and then we'll call it a stream. But oh, sorry, I misunderstood your point. So the drawing, not a ton, to be honest. I used to draw a lot more with like pencil, and I'd do an outline and slowly shade it and sketch it up and stuff like that. But honestly, nowadays my work in my sketchbook is more about quickly getting ideas out, coming up with sort of ideas for forms and ways to treat things, and it's less about creating finished pieces and more about getting thoughts and ideas out of my head. And yeah, no, of late I haven't been doing a lot of the true sketchy or a lot of shading and hatching and using of pencils and slowly building up values. It's not really the way I've been working lately, which isn't to say I won't get back there, but I kind of just like working with pen and doing really simple, bold shapes. That's where I think some of my strengths lie, and it's certainly some of the stuff I enjoy doing. I'm not sure if it's everyone's cup of tea, but that's how I roll. But hey, Cam, man, thanks for hanging out for so long. You've been with us since the very beginning of this stream, which is awesome. I'm glad there's some of you that are sticking with it, aren't absolutely bored to tears. What's cool is if you look at the quality of this rendering, which only went through one pass, and the quality of this one, see this progressive rendering is a pretty sweet option. In fact, something I wish I'd been messing with a little earlier, maybe our render times for the preview renders, the test renderings would have been a little quicker. But I'm liking this kind of hazy atmosphere. It is really feeling otherworldly, which is kind of neat. So let's save this bad boy out. Kind of quality we have there. Oh, we'll knock over into Photoshop. Maybe touch this bad boy. That looks pretty good. I'm feeling it. All right. Stop you. Thanks, Source. Yeah. I'm looking forward to next week, too. Right, so let's adjust this a bit. So, what I did here is I created a gradient map. Then I selected with a color range these colors that are in the temples and rocks. And then I inverted that selection with a mask so that the gradient map is pretty much only applied to the landscape elements. It allows me to add a little bit of red to them all, which unifies it a little bit. I think that works pretty well. Just gonna add a bit of noise. I love adding noise to renderings. Just a bit, just a subtle amount. Maybe what happens if we have distant moon? Y'all like distant moons? Yeah, I mean, Talos, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I would love to see the way that this looks rendered with Octane or Arnold or something like that. Now, the one thing I know is Octane has its own proprietary material system. I know it works a little bit with Cinema. I'm not sure if it would hold these displacement maps, which are all based on textures. But it'd be very interesting to see. I'd love to consider that. And source the sky image to have some detailed clouds. It might not, but let's actually try. Let's check this out. It's not a perfect way to do this. You probably want to get some true royalty-free imagery, but let's just check this out. Cloud. Interesting. Done. What do you think? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, cool. Good to know. So that would work. A lot of people don't know about this image, the select color ranges. You can hold shift and just sort of drag your cursor along. Yeah, I've masked that off fairly quickly. I do think it shouldn't be blue, right? Now, it looks cool. That's too much. Honestly, I think it's a good idea, but I think it takes away a little bit from all the cool texture and detail that we have in the landscape. I don't want it competing, and it's nice to have an area of relief for your eyes. So maybe I'll leave that in really subtly. Maybe I'll try something else too. Oops. Maybe a few stars work better. I think they do actually. So we are almost exactly at the 2 hour mark. And I'm enjoying this. Like even look at this section, has some really rich details. The way these things interact and intersect is pretty cool. Temple's pretty sweet. I think perhaps now let's do this before we close it out. Let's do a quick comparison. So let's compare this with the image that we came up with last week. Now they're both quite cool. The previous version has a bit more range of texture, and I wonder if the pyramids, the simple geometry, isn't a bit more effective given the complexity of the landscape around it. I think they're both fairly successful images. They do have a bit of a different feel to each other, especially considering that they're all created with the same technique, which is kind of neat. But I'm pleased with both images. They both have their merits for sure. So with that, I'll say as I do every week, it's been a ton of fun. So thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with us. The routine subscribers and viewers, I couldn't thank you enough. And the new viewers, welcome aboard. Please hit like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon for notifications. We'll be coming at you with tons more content, both the sketch stream and the practice. So Stuart's saying goodbye. We'll see you next week right here on the practice at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. Until then, enjoy, have fun with your own practice, make some cool shit, hit me up, say hello, check out my work. I'm at DLGNCE on pretty much every social media channel. And my homepage, my body of work you can find at diligence.studio. So this is Stuart saying goodbye. Thanks so much.